When you have the offensive knowledge, you're going to automatically go to the points of initial entry, and you're not going to do like 10,000 steps and a checklist to determine something in an investigation. What you are going to do is you're going to look directly at indicators of compromise, and you're going to automatically know that this is the way some people and attackers should get in. And 9 times out of 10, you bust down triage time and investigations, and sometimes that would actually lead you hours ahead of forensics teams if you're able to catch it in time, or if you know what behaviors you're looking at.
Welcome to the Hacker's Cache, the show that decrypts the secrets of cybersecurity one byte at a time. I'm your host, Kyser Clark, and today we have a returning guest, Josh Ragland. If you missed his first appearance, Josh is an OSCP certified cybersecurity analyst with a serious foundation in programming, networking, and blue team operations. He competed in CTFs, worked in SOC environments, and built hands-on skills with tools like Splunk, Carbon Black, and CrowdStrike. He takes pride in bringing an offensive mindset to defensive security. And if you're wondering what episode he was on previously, it was episode number 1. Do not confuse that with episode 0. So if you want to go back and listen to that, feel free to, but not required to enjoy this episode. So, Josh, thank you so much for coming back on the show. What have you been up to since the last time you was on the show?
Well, thank you for all of that, and thank you for inviting me again. I basically just been dabbling in a little bit of everything, working on typical work stuff and reading a ton of books. I decided to return to C programming, and I wanted to get more into assembly because I think it's the base foundation of what not only every programmer should know, but at least every red team tool builder.
Yeah, assembly is it's from my understanding, it's super hard to understand. And like I looked at assembly and like I haven't touched it, and I'm like intimidated by it, I ain't gonna lie. Any wisdom for anybody that wants to get into assembly, like any pieces of advice?
Put your helmet on, I guess, for the first part. But I mean, after a while, it's very, very, very minuscule. Like machine language assembly is something that goes on under the hood that high level languages help translate into. So anything as simple as, like, if conditions, they get put into comparison operators, jump and compare and things of that sort. So you really start to understand the mechanics on how computers process it. And when you get deeper into it with the binary, you learn how the electricity that's running through the computer system starts building up bits and pieces of the data. And it's as simple as on and off. It gets really, really, really intricate with things. And I think that learning high level languages first before jumping into assembly would probably fare better for people that are newcomers. But for people that already know the languages, you might as well just put your helmet on and jump right in.
Yeah, I mean that's the advice for anything. I would say like if you want to learn something, just go in head first and just get after it. I like to find a course like a I'm a course kind of person. I don't really like to go through all the free resources because I like that structured learning. But for me, it's like usually I just go get a course and just dive right in for learning new topics or grab a book. I like to grab books too. I usually do a video course and a book. So with assembly, or so other than assembly, you've been working on a lot of other stuff. What has been your primary focus? What's had your most attention?
So when I started messing around with assembly and I started learning how the electrical components were getting converted into data, I started getting a little bit more into hardware, which is why I had built the PC that I have over there that runs 2 graphics cards, and it is NVIDIA 5060 Ti's. I'm running dual on an 870E board, which is a Tomahawk, and I was actually able to get bare metal Kali running on it without a lot of the support that it should have had. So it was not very easy to get the CUDA cores and everything running. But I had built a hash cracking machine and started getting more into, the C language because I wanted to interface with the difference in devices and things of that sort. So it's just I got a lot going on, and I try to rotate through things couple hours here, a couple hours there, because if you just dive deep into one thing for so long, you'll get burnt out on it.
Yeah, that was actually gonna be my next question is like, what's your take on, spreading your attention across a few different learning areas or focusing on one? Me, I'm under the opinion, so I have a little bit different opinion than you. I like to focus on one thing as like the primary thing, and maybe add like one thing on the side to like you said, help with the burnout, or maybe an auxiliary learning. Like for example, like when I went through OSCP, like it was only OSCP. When I went through OSWA, well, pretty much any offsec are like it better only be offsec. Otherwise, in my opinion, it's going to make it harder. And that's one of the reasons why I failed OSWA 4 times, because I was trying to do content, I was moving, I went through a breakup, like I was doing all this other stuff while studying for OSWA, and that's one of the reasons why I failed it 3 times. I didn't fail 4 times, I failed it 3 times past my fourth try. But when I finally sat down and like really focused only on OSWA, like that's what made me pass. But I mean, everyone's different, so if you're different, that's fine if you're listening or watching the show. But just know that I actually recently did a newsletter, and I pretty much called it "Hack Yourself," and basically just learn how you learn. Right? Everyone's different. Everyone's got different ways of focusing on and prioritizing what's important to them. So, do you have any additional wisdom there, Josh?
But yeah, so basically what you were just touching upon. So when you're talking about learning different things, it's not wise to say do something like say I'm gonna do Maldev Academy and then I'm gonna do the CRTO. In some cases, in some modules, they might actually overlap, but the learning experience is kind of a little weird. Or you're learning programming and you're trying to do something that's the total opposite. What I do when I'm learning different things like C and assembly, they actually go together. Most of the droppers and executables that are out in the wild, they're going to be either written heavy duty in C and be able to drop assembly instructions through whatever. So you're working with raw memory addresses and you have a lot more access to the system than that you would have with, say, something like Python or similar languages, because of the fact how you got layered security in the blue team defender, AMSI bypasses for PowerShell, different types of ways that loaders work. So even though that they're different things, they all end up making the same pictures. It's like, math and science are different, but they both can go together. You can use math to figure out the science or vice versa. So it's, I guess, you choose what you should look at what your end goal is, and then you should see what complements each other and pair them together in order to have a faster learning experience. Like, I haven't been able to make it through certifications and do the stuff that I want because, overworking and being sidetracked with typical family stuff and things of that sort. I don't have the time to put into what I want to. But when I went to school, I took 4 classes at a time and I strategically overlapped them over multiple degrees to where I completed more degrees in a shorter time. And at the same time, I retained at least 85% of the knowledge that I had went through and discarded the rest that didn't work.
Before we dive further in the show, we need to do security Mad Libs. So a little bit different than the last time you was on, Josh. They're basically fill in blank questions. So I'm gonna speak a sentence, and then you just first thing comes in your mind at the end of the sentence, you just say. Um, you will have 40 seconds to answer 5 questions. If you answer all 5 questions within 40 seconds, you get a bonus 6 security Mad Lib not related to cybersecurity. So, are you ready?
I gave it my best shot.
Josh, the most fun I've ever had hacking was when
The most fun I ever had hacking was when I discovered the OSCP lab and how it was set up.
you're not a real hacker until you've.
Oh, those are some dangerous ones. But you're not a real hacker unless you actually own something.
The worst breach I've seen was caused by.
I'd have to say Conti.
The one tool I use that no one ever talks about is
One tool I use that nobody ever talks about is Abuse IPDB.
the first thing I check after getting a shell is
Who am I?
good answers. You ran out of time. That was about 53 seconds. But yeah, over 40. So you don't get the bonus question, but I appreciate your responses. And yeah, some of those are hard. So don't even worry about it. Your most interesting response out of all those, I would say the most fun I ever had hacking was when OSCP labs. So why OSCP labs?
Because it was more or less like a realistic environment to where you're not going to go to prison for abusing the out of everything. Yeah, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a safe place to actually learn and practice something. And the old lab had 3 different subnets. So you had the one you started out on, the IT and the admin subnets, and you really actually had to tunnel and pivot through there. And it was a nightmare. That actually took me like 42 days to actually complete that whole lab. And in that lab itself is, I guess, similar to a lot of the pro labs that you find on Hack the Box, but it was a lot bigger. There were like 66 machines in that lab.
Yeah, I agree. So that's actually I would say that would be my most fun as well. And I did the old labs and the new labs actually. I was in the middle of the transition. So I completed like I think 17 of the old labs and like 23 of the new labs. So a little bit more on the new labs than the old labs. But yeah, I was in the old labs and then they transitioned to the new labs. So I got to see
Yeah,
both.
you didn't get to see how some of that stuff was very, very unique. I won't dig too deep into it because I don't want to make OffSec angry, but there were phishing scenarios in there, and it was like a maze. So you had to go through all these different machines, and it was like you had to find keys and bits and pieces everywhere. So if your post exploitation was weak, you weren't gonna go nowhere. So
Yeah.
it was like that was a really interesting lab, and if I could do it all over again, I would do it all over again. I just wish that they made their labs more like they did that one.
Yeah. So I mean, you got a little bit of a opposing opinion. You like the old labs more than like the new labs, I suppose. Even, I mean, you never did the new labs, but like you've heard about the new labs and you know
Yeah,
of
yeah.
them and about them. Me, I actually like the new labs more because I didn't like uh I like having my own private lab. Like the old lab is like you have shared machines and like if someone crashes a machine, then like while you're on it, it crashes, or like someone reverse machine while you're on it, like you're just toast. And you told me one time, or maybe you made a post about it, but I remember you saying one time, you're like, that's what makes you good because you have to be fast at the
And you're constantly
exploitation.
redoing everything. And see, not only that, when you were in that shared lab, say you got bored and you wanted someone to tag along, you could sit there and ask a buddy or something that is on the same subnet because they give you a group of people and stuff. You can actually red team it. It's like, here, I'll get in the machine, I'll throw you a show, let's do this stuff. It was like, it was an interesting interaction with the way it was and the way that everything was connected together. But it was funny when I would sit there and sometimes put up my, HTTP server and I get a hit where it was like, "What machine is that, bro?"
That's funny.
That was funny too. But it was it was a really interesting time, and I would never how do you put it? I wouldn't change a thing about it. No,
Nice.
that's why but I do like that I still like that experience way better than what Hack the Box has to offer.
Makes sense. Yeah, I haven't done a pro lab yet, so I can't really compare. But I heard the pro labs we get. We've had other guests on the show say high regards to the pro labs.
I haven't really had the time to sit down and play with that. But I know I did start Dante at least once, and then it reminded me of the OSCP stuff, and then I didn't have the time to finish it. It was actually pretty nice. It reminded me of that in a way, but I haven't checked out the other ones. A lot of people are saying that they're, like, really, really hard, and it's like, I wanna see eventually. But up-to-date stuff, Hack the Box, I'd have to go with.
Last time you was on a show, you mentioned that a red team mindset gives you an edge on blue team tasks like triage and detection. Can you walk us through a real world scenario where offensive knowledge helps you catch something others missed, or where you built detections around behaviors most analysts wouldn't recognize?
Okay, so normally the first thing that you wanna do is you're gonna pull out the MITRE map, and when you look at MITRE, the first thing you got is normally initial access. So with initial access, you only got so much stuff that an attacker can do. They're gonna phish you, they're gonna look for, internet facing, like, appliances, devices, things of that sort. They're gonna run, the full methodology through it to see if it's vulnerable. If not, they're gonna keep moving on and moving on. So have an attacker's mindset shows that, all right, so when you feel like there's something wrong or something's not behaving right, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to backtrack and trace it. And you're going to run it across that. You're going to see what users affected, what behaviors are going on, what processes are firing. And to make the job a lot more simple, all you really have to do is look at execution and you look at the processes if you have the process logs and that, as well as the user's source IP address from where they're logged in at or where this behavior is coming from. So when you have the offensive knowledge, you're going to automatically go to the points of initial entry, and you're not going to do like 10,000 steps and a checklist to determine something in an investigation. What you are going to do is you're going to look directly at indicators of compromise, and you're going to automatically know that this is the way some people and attackers should get in. And 9 times out of 10, you bust down triage time and investigations. And sometimes that would actually lead you hours ahead of forensics teams if you're able to catch it in time, or if you know what behaviors you're looking at. Because if you got red team, you're already playing around with, like, capture the flags, different attacks. So you're already doing these attacks. So if you're already doing these attacks, you should just be able to look at something and automatically know what's wrong.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I mean, I've seen that a little bit. I haven't worked in the real world as a SOC analyst, but I do like going through the Cisco CyberOps certification training and exam, and going through the TriHacking SAL1 exam. I did do the training. Well, I did some of the training, but not much, not all of it. And then doing that exam, yeah, like I could see the alert, and I'm like, oh, that's directory traversal. I'm just throwing things out there. I'm not saying that's on the exam or anything, but yeah, I would see attacks. I'm like, oh, I've done this before, and that's what makes it easy for me to. It wasn't. I mean, I did fail to try hack me SAL one on my first try, but on the second try I passed it. And the only reason why I failed was because of the reporting. It wasn't. I was actually pretty accurate with my triaging. So, yeah, having that red team background, or not red team, pen testing background, um, really helped me with that certification exam, and I can see how it can 100% correlate into the real world. Probably a little bit more difficult in the real world because that's just an entry level exam. But yeah, that's really cool to hear. And yeah, I think anybody in this field, if you're on the blue side, learning a little bit about the red side is beneficial, and if you're on the red side and learning about the blue side is also beneficial. So since you're a blue teamer with offensive training, how do you test detections or simulate realistic attacks internally, especially without the access to a full red team?
Okay, so what you would do is you have multiple free stuff. You have Caldera, you have Infection Monkey. You got all these different types of things such as Rapid7. You got all these bone scanners and all this other stuff. So even if you don't have a red team, you can take different tools. So if it was me personally, normally this is probably not how you do it in a corporate environment, but I would make me a garbage box. I'd open live samples and try to collect logs, and the box would be isolated so that these are real events and sequences and leaves all kinds of different things. And I would at least have to analyze the different behaviors to see what triggers what parts of the registry or even scheduled tasks or any of that kind of stuff if it's like based on malware, droppers, loaders, just Trojans, whatever you want, whatever you could think of, ransomware. Ransomware is just an encryptor. That's garbageware, that's cheatware. But you know what I mean? It's like you got to see the behaviors, you build the detections, and then you test it. So you got C2 frameworks, you got simulators. Um, there's just all kinds of different things that are out there that you can do it without a red team. But the thing is, the red team is always going to be the best. So is the pen testing, but I still think that they should at least have a little bit more wiggle room on a lot of the rules of engagement. But take a look at that. Caldera, Infection Monkey, there were a couple other ones. But I mean, you got to run things to get logs, and then you look at logs to build detections.
So, yeah, so speaking of C2 frameworks, what are some of the key takeaways you've had so far when it comes to building and evading detection with C2 infrastructure?
So that one is an interesting question because a lot of the C2s that you have out, unless you get paid ones like Slivers, should be decent. You can Slivers workable, Cobalt Strike's workable, but you're gonna have to build COP and BOF files or whatever you want to call them, and all these different types of encryptors in order to be able to evade stuff. Then it's like it's a pain. I haven't got to work on a lot of that stuff yet, but I do have a lot of the knowledge to tamper and play with things like bypassing AMSI, Defender, turning it off, like through some CRTP materials. They show you a little couple things in there. And then you got other stuff that shows you how to do stuff like MalDev Academy and things of that sort. But it starts requiring programming when you start getting to EDR evasion and all that because EDR, it hooks into a lot of the processes and different things that get loaded, or in simpler terms, so that while it's monitoring it, if a program tries to tamper or inject into it, it's going to kill that process. And then at the same time, it's going to create logs and set off alerts. So things get a little bit crazy when you get into the EDR evasion world.
Yeah, so when it comes to setting off alerts, you have a lot of experience as a seasoned SOC analyst with CrowdStrike, Splunk, and Carbon Black. And
Carbon Black, and then yeah, and then you got Sentinel One and a couple other things. I worked with just about everything. I did not feel like filling that out because you would be sitting here reading for about 30 minutes. Logarithm's a good one too.
so these platforms, while they have their place, there's no silver bullet in cybersecurity when it comes to detection and prevention. What are some of the limitations you've seen in these platforms when dealing with advanced or stealthy attacks, and how do you get around that?
So a lot of the things is it's like this. So your setup is only going to be as good as your detections are. You got people that are making the detections. You have default detections, and that's just the basic on everything that's detectable. So you, it's not so much as the product's fault. It's more or less the people that are working it because certain things you. So this is where red team, blue team, purple team comes in, where you gotta make both sides work together, right? So the red team's making all the noise, running through. They're safe. They're not going to destroy your environment. So they're leaving logs, they're leaving traces, even if your detections don't pick them up. So when they hand over the red team report, the blue team goes over it and they see everything that was done and everything that was hit. So what you do is you give that to either the detections and engineers, or you have a dedicated person that's familiar with both sides that would translate that report into detections based on all the evidence and mess that was made or that wasn't made and all these other things so that there's detections for the way that they got in the first time.
Going into a completely different topic here. So the last time you was on a show, you made a great point about drawing parallels between computing and biology. Do you think there is value in disciplinary study like neuroscience, game theory, or even philosophy?
Yeah, so you go figure, since you got 4 amino acids, right? A, C, T, and G. All those 4 acids bind in consecutive pairs, so when you're looking at, like, the helix or whatever you wanna call it, where it has a person's DNA sequencing, you'll notice that the bits or the sequencing is evened in a certain way where it shares similarities with bits and bytes and all that other structure and binary ones and zeros. So, I think eventually that there will be some kind of integration between computing and biology, maybe not right now, but eventually there will be, because I'm pretty sure that there's someone in a lab at a black site right now that's basically making their own organisms just by like using genetic repeats and sequencing and just doing some weird, crazy stuff with it. I mean, it's simple stuff. They already have CRISPR-Cas9 to do editing, so why wouldn't they be able to just code up their organisms and spit it out of a computer already? So,
That's definitely an interesting point, and especially since I mean, I don't know, maybe we're heading for like a cyberpunk future where we're all gonna have cybernetics in us, and it's like machine and man. It's gonna be one, but I don't know. That might be a little off topic for the show, but I mean, that's definitely like you said. I do feel like you're right. It is probably gonna start blending together biology and computing in the future.
I mean, it'll be to where people probably are gonna end up living forever and you'll be sterile. You won't be able to have kids to keep from overpopulation. I
Interesting.
forgot what movie that was off of where something similar happened, but
There's, I think I saw somewhere where it was like the first person who gets to live forever is already alive today or something like that. Like it's kind of crazy to think about.
yeah, it ain't. I mean, there's a lot of crazy stuff that's out there that people aren't really touching on the topics, especially like the whole computing world where they're storing what do you call it? I don't remember what it was. I think they made a computer out of a brain or something grown in a petri dish or something like that. It, it was something crazy, and then they got quantum bits, and they're storing things to where you get an extra third bit that's in the on and off stage. So it's like taking that light switch and just putting it in the middle. It gets they got weird stuff going on. I think people are focused on the wrong things at this point in time.
Yeah, maybe you might be right, but it's interesting nonetheless. So I'm gonna ask you the final question a little early because I know you have a huge passion for what you're about to say. So I'm gonna give you some extra time here to answer the final question. And since you're a repeat guest, you're gonna get a different final question than everybody else and what you had the first time around. So here is the final question, and like I said, go ahead and unpack this as much as you want. So, what's one key lesson you've learned recently in cybersecurity? Or, if you'd prefer, what's a bold prediction you have about the future of this field?
Well, I think both of those questions are kind of important. So the one key lesson that I learned about cybersecurity, it's something that you need resilience for, and and you need to have very, very strong resolve because this field will tear you apart. But what I think the future is, well, I'm going to touch up on something that a lot of people are talking about now that don't even understand what they're even talking about. So with the whole AI thing, I think the future of cybersecurity is going to start tanking downhill because a lot of companies are looking at automation through learning language models, replacing and throwing like employees out and stuff like that. So what you end up having is you have garbage LLMs that are trained by probably mediocre analysts that are running companies and that are causing a lot more damage than what they are. There was an article on LinkedIn not too long ago where someone was talking about mass firing. I don't remember the company name, but they were training the AI from the analyst data, the AI got to where it could kind of outdo those analysts from their tasks. And they fired a lot of the analysts thinking that they were going to save a lot of money. Couple months later, I think that they were hiring or wanting manual overview because they seen that it wasn't ready type of deal. And the bad part about this LLM and AI stuff is none of this is true AI. It's not artificial intelligence. It's pattern-based recognition based on interaction type deal, LLM. Something that's what I was able to look at and what I played around with. And it only is capable of doing what it learns. It has no capability of teaching itself. So that LLM is only going to be as good as the people that train it. So when attackers do start hitting things, that LLM is not going to be able to tell benign activity from expected activity, which is network and administrative tasks, as well as the rest of the environment. It's just going to flood false positives. Security posture is going to tank. Everyone's going to go lazy because it's going to switch from learning skills yourself to learning how to use the AI instead of using the AI as a teaching tool. Everyone's like leaning on it more towards a solution to a problem that it's not even ready to solve at this point. So I think because everything's being LLM or whatever learning language model, and everyone's pushing for it because they think that this is the newest thing. And I see that the security stuff is going to be very, very, very bad in the future, especially with people that are going to start losing intelligence because of the reliance and not being able to learn things on their own.
Yeah, I mean that's a good point, and that's something I mentioned on LinkedIn. I made a post, or I shared someone's post, reposted someone's post, my thoughts, and there's a lot of people who are against AI, and they are saying, "Hey, there was a study done. I forget where who did it, but there's been probably actually multiple studies done that say like people who use large language models, their intelligence is actually decreasing, and there is evidence behind that backs it up. And my opinion was, I don't feel like my intelligence went down. I do think less because I can get the answers a lot faster, and I guess for me, like I'm not concerned with memorizing everything, I guess. I don't think it's a good use of time to memorize a million things. And if I can just get the answer by asking an LLM, then why not? Right. I mean, if my intelligence goes down a little bit and my productivity and my efficiency goes up, I think for me personally, that's a net win. But I can definitely see how it would lower your intelligence because, like, you're definitely thinking a lot less. You're doing less research. Like when you like back in the day, it's kind of crazy how I'm saying this. Back in the day, we used to Google stuff, and you'd have to like check out like 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 different articles. Sometimes I'd go up to 30, right, to get a good sample of articles. And now you can just ask
That's
LLM, and it's just
LLM
fills it
right here.
for
I
those who are on audio. He's got a big book. What is that?
C Primer Plus.
What is C? What is that? Like, what's
That's
is
for
it? I don't.
C. It takes you through the whole language where it's from beginning to end, like what you were saying, we had to Google stuff. So the LLM and yeah, the efficiency and productivity goes up, but it's like I still use these.
Yeah, I mean, I like to read too. I for sure, and there are stuff that I have. Like I got my bookshelf here. It's kind of off camera, but I got my bookshelf back there. And there's a lot of times where I just pull a book off the shelf and open it up, and because I know that what I learned a couple years ago was in those books somewhere, and I'll do the research real quick. But oftentimes it's faster to check ChatGPT, but I still do occasionally pull out the books.
I use Chat GPT for nonsense. It's hilarious. I mean, I don't. I use it for like troll stuff or just something to argue with because it's hilarious. But I mean, there, you like what I noticed. I was just trying to mess around with it because I keep seeing this annoying thing, vibe coding or something like that. I die laughing. So I try to make this thing make me some code, and it's broken. I mean, it's like it is so broken. Like, but don't get me wrong, it'll spit out some pretty good stuff sometimes, but you got to be specific. So you got to literally know know what you're programming and put it in the right order and make it do the right things or whatever. But you have to be very, very specific to get it to work, and it's hilarious because even then it still comes out broken, and you got to sit there and tear it apart, move some things around, and fix it. Why do you want to go through all that when like that thing wants to give me like 50 extra lines of nonsense when I can do the same thing in like maybe 10, 15 lines of C. I mean, it's like, I really hope that this isn't our future because if it is, we're screwed.
Interesting take. Yeah, well, you might be right, and it reminds me of the meme I reposted on LinkedIn. It was the scene from Matrix where it's the red pill or blue pill, and he has to pick one or the other. And the caption was it had Keanu Reeves as tech bros. It was like tech bros, and it's like the red pill means AI is the future. Blue pill means it's gonna destroy humanity. And then it was like, did you just take both pills? It's like, yes, it is the future, and it's going to ruin us at the same time. So, yeah, I think it's pretty normal and pretty healthy to have both outlooks. Like, I'm an AI optimist, but at the same time, like, I understand the risks, and I like to dabble in the doom and gloom sometimes. I've definitely talked negative about AI in the past, like, oh, it's gonna take our jobs if you're not careful. I've definitely said stuff like that. So yeah, it makes sense. So thanks for sharing those insights and what to take, and thanks for your bold predictions. And so, where can the audience get a hold of you if they want to connect with you?
They can wherever at LinkedIn, whatever they want to send me a message, whatever. I just hit accept on all the ads.
it, the link to his LinkedIn will be in the show notes, guys. Josh, thank you so much for being on the show. Thanks for returning, and it's been a real treat having you again. So thank you so much for being here.
Not a problem. Anytime you need me, just let me know. I'll come jump on in.
And audience, the best place to get a hold of me is the YouTube comments. So drop a comment and I will reply to you. So hopefully I see you in the comments, and hopefully I see you in the next episode. Until then, this is Kyser signing off.